Hey there, welcome to dotnetFlix. Today we are talking to Maarten van Diemen. So, hi Maarten, welcome to the show.
Hey, hello.
So, we heard that you've got a lot of very practical tips and tricks for your CI/CD pipelines. So, can you tell us more about that?
I'm working at Info Support, and I'm also giving a lot of courses about Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions. And mostly people join a course and they say, "Yeah, I know everything already." And most of the times, I can give them a few tips and tricks, and then they say, "Oh, I've never heard of it." So I thought, well, let's share it here with the dotnetFlix. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, so those tips are applicable to both Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions.
Yeah, so I will start with tips and tricks that you can use both, and then at the end I will zoom in a little bit more on Azure DevOps. But yeah, in the end you can apply them both. So yeah.
All right, very cool. Well, let's dive right in.
All right. Why Azure DevOps and both GitHub? A while ago, I was looking at this page. That's a page on over here on the official Microsoft documentation, where you can use the Microsoft hosted agents. It's called in Azure DevOps. And over there, I was scrolling at it, and I was looking at it, and I thought, hey, what's installed on, for example, Windows Server 2022? I was looking into it, and then I got at a page over here, and then I was looking at it, and then I thought, like, hey, what's happening, right? I see over here, I see actions and runner images. So what's that? So then I clicked. I clicked here on to go to the main page of the repo, and I read the README, and then I saw, hey, this repository contains the source code for both GitHub hosted runners for GitHub Actions, as well for the Microsoft hosted agents. And that got me thinking, like, hey, if they're already using the same infrastructure, right, because they're using the same images with the same software on it, what are the shared capabilities that we can use between Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions? So that's how I got to this presentation and those tips and tricks, actually. But before we dive into the tips and tricks, I quickly want to have a look at, hey, what is YAML? Because if we're talking about pipelines in GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps, we need to do some stuff with YAML, and some people hate it, some people love it. In the end, if we do something with GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, we need to deal with it. So basically what YAML does inside a pipeline is that it's just a data serialization language. So Microsoft, GitHub, they designed a object structure. And with that, you can define the structure in YAML that they defined in order to build up your pipeline. And so you do that with YAML file extensions. And it's also called YAML ain't markup language. That's the official ones. But I've also heard people say, like, yelling at my laptop, yet another markup language. So yeah, there are some frustrations about it by some people, actually, when they hear we need to use YAML again, actually. So let's look at the basics. If we compare it, then you see that, like, with YAML, you have like line separation and indentation. With XML, we use the long XML tags, and with JSON. So those are the differences. Just looking from a perspective. This is, by the way, not Azure DevOps YAML or the structure. So if we look at the YAML basics, then this is the most minimal one that we can define. And here you see a list of services with one entry in it. So that's basically a key value pair, actually. And in there, you can define it in different ways. So, for example, a Boolean is all valid to define it this one of these ways in YAML. So we will come to that in a moment. Why is that important? And the other thing that's important to see, like, I don't need to define like the quotes in order to identify that this is a string. That's all identified by YAML itself, actually. Looking at lists, I had here a list, but if I have like one entry in it, so not really a set of key value pairs, I can also define it this way. That's like the shorthand of it, or this way. That's basically this and this. That's basically the same. The left one over here, that's basically saying include the new lines in it.
Okay.
And so this one is quite often used in pipelines within Azure DevOps and both GitHub. You will see that in a moment. But this one, most people don't know. Then the new line is basically ignored. So that's very handy if you have like really long statements that really need to be on one line. Then you can use the right syntax as well.
If you might need a space in between, like admin space console, is that also something that you can do?
Yeah, it takes into consideration the space, but this is purely about the new lines, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can do. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Then I have another one. This also again valid YAML. What's the issue over here, actually?
Okay, so this one, I would guess that the bottom two, it would try to interpret that as a number because there's just a single decimal separator, but the top two, it would try to interpret as a string, and it probably cannot put all of that in a single list.
It can still put it in a single list because that's allowed. But yeah, what you say, Sander, is correct. So the first one, it cannot make a proper decimal out of it, so it converts it to a string. And the bottom one, I can say, hey, it's one. So that's something to think about if you think, hey, I want to type something in YAML. I need to think about it. And then the last one, what's the issue? I don't know if you have an idea about this one.
I don't know.
Maybe no is a keyword. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, so that's correct, Edwin. So like no, we saw that actually somewhere over here with the yes and the no. So that one will be. So if you don't use quotes, then YAML will interpret it for you, and then you get really strange results. So these two examples came from, I think, someone from Belgium or from the Netherlands, Ruud van Asselton.
from hell,
and he wrote a blog post about the YAML document from hell, and there are a few other scenarios in it in where YAML will, if you don't define it explicitly, then YAML will make a choice for you that you might not like.
And do you only use double quotes, or can you also use, because these are like office quotes, right, on the slide? That's not actually correct, I think. But can you also use single quotes, or is that something different?
I mainly use single quotes.
Okay.
I don't know if you use the double quotes. I think it will interpret it just fine. But let's try it out in a moment to see what the behavior is.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Because then let's just go to Azure DevOps to start with. Because sometimes we have an issue, right? I have my set of pipelines. And with my set of pipelines, I've also created an app. So that's basically the app that we're going to use, that we're going to build. It's just a simple ASP.NET Core app. Just for an example, over here you see I've built it with Scalar. So this is the example app that we're going to build. And in here, for example, I can also really show you that it's actually working. So here I can say, hey, .NetFlix, it's a to-do items app. So let's say we haven't completed the episode yet. So let's say that this one isn't completed yet. I can send it, then it will say, hey, I have created this this entry in the database, and then well, if I want to retrieve it over here, then I get the entry back. So it's just a valid working .NET app that we're going to build. So yeah, I've built this app. I've checked it into source control, and now I want to build it. And one of the issues that I have is that I'm using the Microsoft hosted agents. So I've decided over here, if I'm looking at my YAML pipeline, with this, I have defined, hey, I want to run it on a Ubuntu machine from that's hosted by Microsoft. That's defined by the VM image. But over there, I have an issue because I have a lot of dependencies, and due to those dependencies, it's taking a really long time to get all those dependencies in when I do a .NET restore. Every time when I run my build. And normally, if you run it on a machine that's hosted by yourself, by the customer or your company, then that's not an issue, because then those NuGet packages will be cached. But if you build it on a hosted agent by Microsoft, then every time when you start a new build, you get a clean machine. So you don't have any caching, and every time you start a build, all those dependencies needs to be downloaded. So we can fix that. But before we're going to modify our pipeline, or at least see how this looks like, we need to make a small modification in our app. And that's a setting in our project files that we need to apply. Oh, over here you see it already, but I need to apply the restore packages with log file. I don't know why it here. So if I add this line to my CSPROI file, to my project file, and I save it, then automatically, usually after I'm building, you see it, it's popping up over here. I'm getting a packages.log.json file. And this packages.log.json file contains basically all my dependencies that are required to build that project, including, as you can see, the transitive dependencies and the direct dependencies, and a hash of the content. So what I do with this is I've applied it for both, so for both my API and my unit test, and I've checked this in. What I then can do is I can say in Azure DevOps over here, I can use a task that you can just look up. It's available for everyone. It's the cache task, and with a cache task, I can say, hey, I have here this set of file on this place on my disk. Please set them apart for me so I don't need to download, or at least NuGet needs to download them all again. And I do that with a special syntax, because in the end, we need to tell the task, hey, what dependencies do I need to cache? So you define here the paths. So you can say, hey, on this location, it's this underwater, this will become an environment variable. So then the .NET CLI will use this alternative place, else it will use just the default place to put your packages in there. And then we need to define a key. Like, how can Azure DevOps identify this set of packages? And how we do that is we take all the packages.log files and we will create a hash out of it. So just to make it a little bit more concrete, let's just run this pipeline. And then in a moment, it will start running. Yes, there it goes. So then you will see when it comes to the restore cache task, when it's downloaded .NET. It's a bit fast, but I will go there right now. If it don't, then you will see, hey, based on the pattern that I've defined, that's this one. So I first said NuGet, or I run this agent on Linux. It's a best practice by me to define also your operating system if you run it on multiple operating systems like Windows or Linux. And then basically due to this pattern, it will say, hey, I found a packages.log.json in your integration tests project or folder and in your API folder, and I will create a hash of it, of each of the files, and then I will combine these two hashes to a new one, and then I have the key. And then the first time it will say, hey, let's see if I have, with this key, if I have a set of dependencies available, and then it will state over here, no. I don't have anything. And then it will just continue the pipeline, and we will just run .NET restore like we usually do. But the thing is,
so Maarten,
yeah.
A quick question. I guess that a single change in the version number of a single package is enough to clear the whole cache, right? Or
correct, because if you update one dependency, then basically your package.log.json will be modified, and then you will get here a new key.
Yeah, and then you would have to do a full new restore. Yeah,
what it does, it's then it will just have the behavior like here. So then it will say, hey, I have a new key, but I don't have a set of dependencies stored in this key. So then it will state, hey, there's a cache miss. And then by default, at the end of your pipeline, if you use that cache task, it will say to you, hey, I need to do a post job. And then it will basically do everything all again. But then it will say, all right, there is a cache miss, but there is a set of dependencies in the folder that I've defined. Right, I need to find the path of my NuGet packages. And then basically what it will do, if it say, hey, now I have a match, and then basically it will start filling up, what you will see over here. It will fill up the set of dependencies that belong to your to the key.
All right.
So now if I run this pipeline again, since I've run it for the first time, then you will see that it will behave a little bit different, because now it will say, hey, I have a cache hit, and then it will start downloading actually. So let's first download .NET again. It's by default, .NET 9 is not installed on a Linux agent. So you need to, every time you need to say, hey, please install it again. Which I was expecting actually that they would have installed it in the end, but yeah. But now you will see that over here, now it will say, hey, I have a cache hit. And then it will say, hey, I'm going to download 700 megabytes of dependencies, and always it's more than 100%, probably because it's zipped or unzipped or something. I don't know, but every time when I do this, I see more than 100% in the logs data. But then it will see, hey, I've downloaded of those 704, I've downloaded 200 and almost 300 megabytes. I unzipped it, and then it was 700 megabytes. But with that, you will see that you can really speed up your dependencies for NuGet, but also for basically every other language, right? Because for TypeScript, you also have a concept for your package log files, and for all kinds of different languages. So as long as they support it, you don't need to have all those separate HTTP calls for each dependency, which in the end will really speed up your pipeline in the end. For example, at a project where I'm working right now, we gained like a 1 minute improvement only on restoring the dependencies actually right now. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So we can do the same like this. We can do the same on GitHub Actions. Right. So if we move to GitHub Actions, and over here I have already a pipeline. Let's first see the workflow file, and you will see that it's the same. It's a different syntax, but the idea is the same. So now it's more explicit. I do a hash file of all my package.log.json files. I'm excluding the bin and the object folder, and that's it. Right. So if we run this pipeline as well, so I'm going to run this pipeline. Then it will show up in a moment. Yeah. Here it will set up .NET as well. Here it will state as well, I have not found a cache for the key that you've defined over here. So then it basically will do the same, and the behavior is the same. So you see that you have a post restore action that's running now actually to set up, and it's faster, way faster, but it did the same. In GitHub Actions, you have another additional feature, which is not available in Azure DevOps, but you can also manage your caches. So here I see my cache. I can't download it, but if I want to invalidate my cache, it's really easy. I just say delete cache, and then it's gone in GitHub, and then I can force it to rebuild it. In Azure DevOps, that's not possible. So then the cache will expire in seven days if it's not used. So yeah, with that we can really speed up our builds by only using caching. But there is another way, because I was also stating like, hey, .NET 9 is by default not installed. Right? I can show it because I think it was Sander who sounded a little bit surprised when I said it.
Yes, I'm still surprised.
But I can show it. So if I search for Microsoft hosted agents, and we go to the Linux images, because that's the one I used, and I'm going to the 24 one.
So what's the deal here? Do they only install LTS releases?
I have no idea. In the past, they did also the non-LTS releases, but right now you see there's only .NET Core SDK 8 installed. So I don't know why, to be honest. But it's not installed on the hosted agents by Microsoft. Yeah. But if we take it one step further, because now we have seen that we can use this in order to cache our dependencies. But if we want, we can also cache our tools. So, for example, if we go back to Azure DevOps, and I'm going here to another caching pipeline. And what I did over here, it's now a Windows pipeline, but the idea is the same. I've created a script myself, and with that I can retrieve the latest version of .NET 9. With this, I can set it as a variable inside Azure DevOps, and then I can say, hey, cache .NET for me. Especially for Windows, in which the installation, which I will show you, will take a little bit longer. Then you can see that it might become handy, because with the Linux one, we just saw it take like between 10 and 5 seconds or something to install .NET. if we now take a Windows machine, it will take roughly around 20, sometimes even 30 seconds to install .NET. So if we can cache that, then that will also help us even by a bit. So that's what we will see over here. So first we'll check out the source code, and then it will run my custom script to retrieve the latest .NET version. Then it will now download .NET, and for some reason it failed. Probably because they released a new version. Always fun with the live demo, because this morning it was working. But the idea is that it will, because it's Patch Tuesday, right? That in that moment we're right now. So I think in a moment we will see that a new SDK will become available. But the idea basically is that this will be installed and downloaded in a certain folder, and then we can cache that folder as well. So then we will just restore a zip file each time, which will speed up our build in the end as well. Which will also, because it's just the same task, so I'm not going to show it for GitHub. But it's the same idea actually. Yeah. Cool. So then we just seen that, well, this is the new version. It's a bit of a pity for my other demo, but anyway, I will show it.
Yes, I'm currently looking at the web page, Maarten. The web page says latest release as of May 13 is 300.
Yeah, but apparently, because like I said, I'm using it here from the API. So the official, it's at least one of the official from Microsoft. Let me see. Let me edit the pipeline here. And I think if I look over here, it's a certain blob that you can take from Microsoft. The .NET blob, .NET CLI blob.core.
Okay.
They have
contains the release
file.
numbers.
Yes, and there you can, that's something you can just parse and read, and that's what I did. And there you will see that it's looking for 0.9.301.
Yeah,
is the latest SDK. So I expect it will be released.
We are in limbo right now.
Yes. I didn't take that into consideration. I've never seen this
cutting edge.
Yeah. Yes. But let's say I have. It's a bit of a thing, right? Because, like you said, Sander, I can see it in here, but it's not that easy to troubleshoot this issue, right? Now it's stated it. But what you can also do in Azure DevOps is that you can say like, hey, what's my version actually? So then I can, for example, I can have this. Right? I can zoom in a little bit. Yesterday it was still 300, as you can see. But then you can see like, hey, these are the versions used. So I can build my own file with custom information in it, and it can even be version used, custom tools that you've executed that have a certain output that you want to show in a really nice way in your pipeline. Actually, that's something you can do as well. By this. So what you can do is then by creating, well, I'm creating here a markdown file, and by running that, I've created my markdown file, and then with this special piece of VSO command line, then basically it will attach your markdown file as an extension that you just saw a moment ago. It will attach that so you can see all your custom information, which will make it more easily to read than just scrolling through the logs to see what's going on. We can do the same of this in GitHub. If I will see it. The only nice thing is in GitHub, it's not hidden under extensions. Then basically it will just show it straight away. Like, hey, this is the build that is used. in order to build this application actually. But like I said, you can just add anything that you want. You can put it in a markdown file, and then you can just attach it. It's also handy if you're just writing your own extensions, but yeah. How does this look like in GitHub? It's working a little bit differently. There you can see that I'm not just writing it to a file and then attaching it like I did with Azure DevOps, but you just say, hey, I'm just put it to a certain environment variable. It's the GitHub step summary, and then it will just show that information to you, just a markdown to an environment variable. Right. Yeah. So that's if you want to do custom things or want to do publish custom information. That must be easily readable, or you want to find easy. Then the next thing is something that Sander already mentioned. Like, hey, it's really not that handy actually that Microsoft hasn't installed the .NET 9 on their hosted agents. So yeah, how can we do that maybe more easily? Well, there's also another way to fix it without installing the .NET SDK. What I do over here is I just say, hey, if you run this job, right? Normally we run it on a machine, but now I want that you run this job inside a container. And that can be your own custom container. That can just be an image from Docker Hub, which is in my case. But then basically it will spin up the Docker container. It will inject the Azure DevOps software in it. And then all the steps that you've defined over here, they will run inside that Docker container. Which is either show from Docker Hub or the one that you've created yourself. So then if we have that, then it will behave a little bit different, because before it can start our build actually, it needs to download our container that we've specified. So that's the first thing that it will do. Then it will do some internal setup, which the commands of that you will see in a bit. And then it will just basically execute all the steps of my pipeline inside a Docker container. So this is especially handy if the software is not installed on the agent. Or like an old version of .NET, which you still need to use. And you don't want to install, then you can just use that Docker container. So that's also.
So Maarten, does the caching optimization still work when you use containers?
Yes, that still works. Yeah, because you see it over here. I have in this pipeline, I'm still using caching.
Okay. So that's just being mapped to your container, and
yeah, it will do also some volume mounts. It will set up so it can use it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
and is there any way to speed up the pool of the container, possibly by some other caching mechanism?
To be honest, I don't know. In the past, Microsoft had some caching of the most common used layers of Docker, so that would have speed up. In the lately, I haven't seen it anymore in the documentation that they put that caching in it.
Okay.
So if you're using the hosted agents, I don't see a way to speed it up, to be honest.
Right.
But it's 19 seconds that you need.
But it's pretty good still. Yeah.
So it's pretty good. True. Yeah. So you can use just everything what I've just told. You can write down the markdown file with and push it as an extension or in GitHub as a summary, because this will work the same way. What I've shown here in GitHub, it's almost the same syntax, right? I'm just specifying the container over here. This is my host. So on this host, a Docker host need to be installed. And then you can use this. So you can even use this as well if you are running the agent on premise. So you've hosted the agent yourself. As long as you have a Docker host, you can use this functionality. So if I would run this one, the container job, it's always a bit over here, run workflow. They will see over here when we execute it, that it will do the same. So it will initialize first the containers, and then it will just execute the steps that we've just defined. Over here, I haven't configured caching, so that's the reason why you don't see it over here, but over here it will work as well. And sometimes I need to check. So for some reason, it's a little bit faster over here, but yeah, the idea is the same. It will now just run inside the container. Right. Then the other thing, issue that I usually have, because I've now built this beautiful to-do items API, and I've built some integration tests for it. But there is one issue, because I want to run my integration tests against SQL Server. And there's one thing that their SQL Server is not installed on the Microsoft hosted agents. I think SQLite is, but I really just want to use the full-fledged SQL Server, because that's also what I'm going to use on production when I deploy it. So what I can do for that, I can use another concept, and that one is called service containers. And with service containers, I can define a resource, which is a container. And I will just say, hey, please give me the latest SQL Server 2022. I need to upgrade it to 25, sorry, which is lately announced. But then you need to define some environment variables, port mapping, some additional parameters. And then you can define in your job over here, please spin up this image. Right, so that's different than a container job in which we actually run our pipeline, but with a service container, our Docker image is actually set up to next to our pipeline. So nothing is executed within unless we explicitly say so. So if I run this one, then it will show the same behavior, right? So it will show, hey, I'm going to initialize a container, but now it's going to set it next behind the steps that will be executed. In here, you see a few more steps. So basically, you will see that I will create my database table, and so I can actually use it. But this is just a way to show you that, hey, I don't need to install it through Chocolatey, for example. If I have some external tools, as long as there is a Docker container for it, I can spin up a Docker container. And then I just have my external services that I use, like my Redis cache or my SQL Server or those kind of things. To be honest, I'm not really fond of it, because what I really prefer to use, if I need to use service containers, I try to use test containers more. I don't know if you've heard of it, Sander or Edwin.
Yeah. So how do you use test containers from your pipelines? There like an add-in for that?
No, because with test containers, so test containers is a framework. It's a NuGet package, but there's also a variant for Java and other languages. And basically, it spins up a Docker container, and you control it. right? So
you only need Docker. You only need a Docker host, right? It does everything from the NuGet package.
Yeah. So right now I have the Docker host already because that's by default already installed on the Microsoft hosted agent. So it will just work out of the box on these kind of on the Microsoft hosted agents.
Have you already tried the .NET Aspire integration testing in the pipeline?
I haven't tried it yet. It's on my list to try it out, but I haven't done it yet. No.
It will probably be the same behavior as test containers.
I expect as long as it needs a Docker host, then I expect that it will work. Yeah, because I have integrated. So what it right now does is in this .NET test, I will share the source code with you at the end, and you can place it in the notes, show notes. But right now, it's also besides executing it against the service container, it's also spinning up the test container. So it does a couple of things. It tests it in memory. It tests it as a test container, and it tests with a service container.
You can't be too sure
that it's all just to show that it's possible, right? In your pipeline in the end. Yeah, but you can, like I said, I prefer that you use test containers because then the reason for that is that you have on your local machine the same behavior as on your build server, and the service container is something that will be, well, not magically, but it will be there for some reason, and it will also be down at the end. And with test containers,
with the test containers, you can also decide how long you want to keep it alive, right?
Yeah.
And with the service container, it's
it will start at the beginning of your job, and it will be teared down at the end of your job.
So you only have one instance,
unless you specify more instances of it in your YAML pipeline, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So this will work as well. Just to show in GitHub Actions. Just quickly, as I said, I will share the code at the end, so you can all look at it yourself. To the syntax and those kind of things. But what's the cool thing? Maybe it's a bit of the question that Sander just asked. You can call your service container from your container job if you really would like, from within Azure DevOps. So you can combine just everything that I've just told in one big pipeline. What you need to do for that, just let me go to this workflow file. I'm also looking at it where you just need to say, hey, MSS SQL, right? This is a name I defined myself. So this is now a DNS entry inside my container job. So instead of, I've specified here localhost. If I state here MSS SQL, then it will be reachable from my container job, actually. So everything can be combined in the end. All right. Then let's move to something else, because Sander and Edwin, have you built in the past as well some pipelines and work with templates with it, or you haven't touched that part yet?
No, I haven't used templates for now.
Nope.
All right. Because if you start working with templates, I think the idea is clear, right? With templates, you have a piece of steps or jobs or stages that you want to reuse. And one of the concepts that Azure DevOps specifically has is the difference between compile time parameters, which is like with this syntax, and you have like runtime parameters in it. And it's really important that if you build templates, that you try to use as much as possible, that you start to use those compile time parameters. And why is that? Well, right here I have a variable which is called build configuration, which will indicate that everyone who is using this template needs to define that build configuration variable, and that's something you cannot ask. So just to show you what's a compile time parameter, I will just show you this pipeline in Azure DevOps, which is basically this. This is exactly the same. And if I show you the template, then you will also see that this is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And if you want to debug your pipeline, or see like, hey, what is the behavior of my pipeline? You have a button over here, and it's basically say download full YAML. And what it does is basically it's showing you the YAML that Azure DevOps will send to the engine.
Yeah.
So if I will download this one, and I will open this in my Visual Studio Code, then here I see all the steps, because I had print 1 and print 2. I just had it in the template. So it would just now be one big YAML file, because that's in the end what will be sent to the engine. So it will just take the part of the template and place it into the main YAML file. And there you will see that this was the value of my parameter, right? So if I go back here to Azure DevOps, right? This is the value that I passed in. So this is also the behavior of Azure DevOps. A compile time parameter, it will take this value and place it actually in here. That's and that's also the reason why. If you build templates, you want to use as much as possible those compile time parameters, because then you can just pass this value, which is a variable that you have defined yourself. Then everything will be put back into one big YAML file, and then that's the easiest way to make it work, because else you need to ask everyone, hey, please define this variable, else it will not work. So then a compile time variable is more foolproof, actually. Those are the tips and tricks that I wanted to share, and what I think are actually you can use them actually right away in your project, in your pipelines.
Pretty cool. And we always love those hands-on tips and tricks, right? Because, what I often see with developers is if they start working with these pipelines and with these YAML files, building your sources is quite simple. It always starts off pretty simple, but you can do lots of stuff. And you really have to, in the end, it's actually like programming, basically. So you have to make it also maintainable and make sure that it's clear what you're doing in these YAML pipelines. So I think it's good to give them lots of love, because it's basically the engine beneath everything you do to get software to production. So it's really important. So thanks for that. I think those are pretty handy tips that you can use next working day. So thanks for that. Everyone watching, I hope you also liked it. If you like dotnetFlix, please subscribe to the channel and give us a like. And then we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.